My sister-in-law thought Sichi had stolen my CEO husband's fortune until I showed her the truth. Welcome to another episode of Story Threads podcast. My name is Emma, and today I'm here with Michelle, who came from Atlanta, Georgia, to tell us today's unbelievable story. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Michelle, thank you for joining us.
Emma, thank you for having me here today. It all started when I heard, "Michelle, we need to talk," Lucas said, his voice laden with a seriousness I had never heard before. It was a Thursday in September, and I had just arrived home from an emergency meeting at Brooks Construction, his family's billion-dollar company, where I've been CEO for 4 years. He stood in our kitchen, his hands shaking slightly, avoiding my gaze. "Camila is pregnant," he said, finally meeting my eyes. "It's my child. I want a divorce." Camila, my sister-in-law, Lucas's younger sister, who had always been jealous of our perfect life. For a moment, the words simply floated in the air between us. My brain processed the information with the same coldness I use to analyze financial reports. At 34, after 6 years of marriage, I thought I knew my husband. Lucas was kind, passive, completely dependent on me for any important decision. But a cheater? With his own sister? That I didn't expect. "How long?" I asked, my voice coming out surprisingly calm. 8 months, he muttered, staring at the floor. 8 months of lies. 8 months of family dinners where Camila looked at me with that fake smile, asking about our plans to have children. 8 months of me building his family empire while he built a new life behind my back. But while Lucas waited for tears or screams, something completely different happened to me. A cold clarity set in. Because I knew something that neither Lucas nor Camila knew. They had no idea how the money really worked at Brooks Construction. They didn't know that our luxury apartment was owned by the company. They didn't know that Lucas's executive position was purely decorative. And most importantly, they didn't know that I was the one who was really in charge. Camila thought she was stealing her billionaire husband. In reality, she had gotten involved with a man who was completely dependent on the woman he had just betrayed. "When does Camila want to talk to me?" I asked, surprising Lucas with my calmness. "Tomorrow night. She wants to explain in person." "Perfect," I replied, already mentally rehearsing our conversation. "Michelle?" Lucas hesitated. "You're not going to make this difficult, are you?" I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had given in months. "Of course not, Lucas. I'll make it easy for you." If he only knew what it meant when I made things easier. Because while Camila was probably celebrating her big victory, planning how to spend our money, I already knew exactly how this story would end. And it wouldn't be what she imagined. In fact, when she found out the truth about who really controlled the Brooks family fortune, the only thing Camila would feel was the bitter taste of her own ambition. But that would only be the beginning. To understand how we got here, I need to tell you who Camila really is. My sister-in-law has always been obsessed with money and social status. Ever since Lucas and I got married, she couldn't hide her jealousy of our perfect life. Camila was 28 and had been single for 3 years after ending a toxic relationship with a guy who supported her. She worked as a saleswoman in a department store, earning minimum wage, but lived like she was an heiress. Her credit cards were maxed out, she had loans to pay off, and she was always asking her parents to lend her money. But what bothered me most was the way she looked at me during family lunches. That look of pure envy when I told her about my promotion at work, about the trips Lucas and I took, about our plans to buy a bigger house. "It must be nice to have everything handed to you on a silver platter," she would always murmur, with that fake smile. Camila had a special talent for making poisonous comments disguised as jokes. "Michelle, you've been wearing a lot of makeup lately. Trying to look younger," she said last Christmas, in front of the whole family. Or, "Lucas, don't you think Michelle works too much? A wife should focus more on her husband." Always with that tone of concern, but with venom in her words. During that same Christmas, Camila became particularly interested in the details of our financial life. "Michelle, you must make a fortune being CEO," she said, pouring her third glass of wine. "Lucas told me you're thinking about investing in real estate." Lucas, as usual, said more than he should have. The company is doing very well. Michelle is a business genius. Our net worth has doubled in the last 2 years. Camila absorbed every word, asking questions about our investments, our apartment, even the car I drove. You must be millionaires, she said, her eyes shining with greed. And do you plan to have children to leave them all this fortune? The question was a stab in the heart. Lucas and I had been trying for years, but nothing had happened. We're trying, I replied, uncomfortable. What a shame. If you don't succeed, all that wealth will be meaningless, she said, feigning innocence. At the time, I thought it was just jealousy talking. Now I realized she was doing a thorough assessment of our financial situation. After Christmas, Camila started showing up more in our lives. I was in the neighborhood and decided to stop by, she would say, showing up at our apartment unannounced. Always when I was working and Lucas was home. She started bringing her personal problems to him to solve. I'm having difficulties at work. Could you talk to my boss? My car broke down. Can you lend me money to fix it? I'm feeling lonely. Do you have time for coffee? Lucas, who always thought of himself as a savior, loved these opportunities to help. She also started asking for marriage advice. You and Michelle have such a solid marriage. How do you make it work? What should a woman do to keep a man interested? What's it like to have a successful husband? Lucas, who had never worked hard on our marriage, loved giving this advice. In January, Camila started showing up looking dressed up when she came to visit. Flawless makeup, tight clothes, strong perfume. I'm trying to improve my self-esteem, she explained. In February, I noticed that Lucas was different. More concerned with his appearance, working out, buying new clothes. I'm taking better care of myself, he explained when I asked. For whom? I insisted. For myself. And for you, of course. A blatant lie. Camila started sending Lucas messages more frequently. How was your day? I'm thinking about you. Thank you for being so kind to me. When I asked about the messages, Lucas said she was going through a difficult time. She just needs support. She's my sister. In March, he started going out more. I'm going to meet some friends, always the same excuse. But when I called to check, his friends didn't know anything. One night, I followed Lucas to a restaurant downtown. I saw him sitting at a cozy table with Camila. She was wearing a red dress I had never seen before, laughing at everything he said. Lucas was holding her hand across the table. My own husband and sister-in-law, acting like lovers. I confronted Lucas that same night. He broke down completely. He cried, begged for forgiveness, promised he would end it. It was a mistake, Michelle. I was confused, feeling insecure in our marriage. Insecure about what? You're so successful, so independent. Sometimes I feel diminished. Typical Lucas. Turning his own betrayal into a self-esteem issue. Camila makes me feel important, he continued. She listens to me, values me, admires me. And I don't. You're always busy with work, with meetings. Camila has time for me. Of course she did. She didn't work for a billion-dollar company. She told me she's been in love with me since you brought me home. And you believed her? She cried when she told me. She said she respected our marriage, but she couldn't hide her feelings. Poor Lucas. He didn't realize he was being manipulated like a puppet. Lucas promised to break up with her the following week. More lies. Over the next few months, he was more cautious, but he didn't stop. They replaced face-to-face meetings with conversations on apps that automatically deleted themselves. She started showing up in places where he was by coincidence. At the supermarket where he shopped. At the gym he went to. At the cafe where he had breakfast on Saturdays. Camila was orchestrating chance encounters to keep the relationship alive. And I, idiot that I am, believed that Lucas had honored his promise. Until yesterday, when he came home with that serious expression and said, "Camila is pregnant. It's my child." 8 months of lies. 8 months of them laughing in my face. 8 months of Camila meticulously planning how to steal the life I had built. Because that was what she wanted, Not Lucas, but everything that came with him. The luxury apartment, the imported car, the trips, the social status, the money. She thought she was stealing the goose that laid the golden eggs.
Poor Camila.
She had no idea she was about to discover the difference between appearance and reality. And when she found out, well, tomorrow's conversation would be much more interesting than she imagined. The following Friday, Camila showed up at our house at exactly 7 o'clock in the evening. She was dressed as if she were going to an important job interview. A navy blue suit I had never seen before, high heels, impeccable makeup. In her hands, she carried a leather briefcase that clearly wasn't hers, probably borrowed from a friend. "Michelle," she said, walking into our living room as if she owned the place, "thank you for agreeing to talk to me civilly." Civilly, as if I were some kind of savage for being upset about being cheated on. Lucas was sitting on the couch, looking like a teenager who had broken his mother's favorite vase. "Sit down," Camila said, pointing to the armchair as if she lived there. I sat down, watching as she opened the briefcase and took out some papers. "First, I want you to know that I didn't plan this," she began in that sweet voice she always used when she lied. "Love just happened." She held Lucas's hand dramatically. "But now that we're expecting a baby, we need to be practical about the situation." "Practical," I repeated.
Exactly.
"Lucas explained your financial situation to me, and I want to be fair." Camila took a sheet of paper out of the folder. "I've worked out a division that I think is fair. You can have $300,000 to start your life over." $300,000. As if that were a fortune. The apartment, of course, is ours. Lucas needs a stable home to raise our son. She spoke as if Lucas were a devoted father when he could barely remember to pay the bills. "What about the company?" I asked. "Well, you'll have to leave, of course. It would be very awkward for everyone to continue working in the family business after the divorce." Camila smiled as if she were doing me a favor. "But don't worry. With $300,000, you can start a small business. Maybe a financial consulting firm? I hear you're good with numbers." Lucas remained silent, letting Camila orchestrate the entire humiliation. "What about the car?" I continued. "Oh, the BMW is ours too. We need a reliable car for the baby." The BMW that I had chosen, I had financed, I drove every day. "Camila," I said calmly, "are you sure you've thought this through?" "Of course. I've spent the whole week organizing everything." She pulled more papers out of the folder. "I've even talked to a lawyer friend of mine. He said that considering you don't have any children and you have a stable career, the division would be pretty simple." A lawyer friend. Probably the same one she couldn't afford during her own divorce. "What if I don't agree?" I asked. Camila laughed, a high-pitched, artificial sound. "Michelle, be realistic. Lucas has already made his choice. You can walk away from this with dignity, or you can make it more difficult. But the outcome will be the same." That was the moment something changed in me. It wasn't anger or sadness. It was a cold, calculating clarity, like when I analyzed a problematic acquisition at the company. Camila was treating me like an employee being fired. Lucas was discarding me like a piece of old furniture. They thought they had all the power because I was the abandoned part of the equation. "All right," I said finally. "All right." Camila blinked, surprised. "I'll accept the divorce." The relief on her face was obvious. "How mature of you, Michelle. I know it's hard, but..." "On one condition," I continued. "Condition? I want everything done officially. Lawyers, legal documents, formal division of assets." "Of course," Camila said quickly. "It's better to do everything right."
Great.
"I'll hire my own lawyer." "Why do you need a lawyer? I've already organized everything." "Camila," I interrupted, "if we're going to do this, let's do it right." Lucas finally spoke up. "Michelle, don't make this complicated. Camila just wants to be fair." "I know," I replied, smiling. "And I want to make sure everything is legal." After they left, I was alone in the apartment for the first time in years. I walked over to the window and looked out at the city of Atlantis stretching out below me. Buildings my company had built. Contracts I had negotiated, projects I had overseen. And down there, somewhere, was Camila, probably celebrating her victory with a bottle of champagne she couldn't afford. That's when I picked up my phone and made the first call.
Mia?
It's Michelle Brooks. I need a divorce lawyer. The most aggressive one you know. Michelle? I thought you and Lucas were okay. Long story. Can you recommend someone? I can do better than that. I handle corporate divorce cases myself. When would you like to meet? Tomorrow morning. That urgent. Mia, my husband is leaving me for his sister-in-law. She thinks she's going to get $500 million empire. There was a pause on the other end of the line. And she is. Not if I can help it. After hanging up, I made the second call. To my father-in-law. Frank, it's Michelle. We need to talk. About Lucas? About the future of Brooks Construction. Come over first thing tomorrow morning, before you go to the office. I hung up the phone and looked around the apartment. Camila had talked about our apartment, our car, our life. But she had no idea she was laying claim to things that had never belonged to Lucas. And when she found out the truth, well, that would be interesting to watch. Because while she was at home planning how to spend money that didn't exist, I was planning how to protect an estate she didn't even know existed. The difference between us was simple. Camila dreamed of wealth. I built empires. And in the end, dreamers always lose to builders. Especially when the builders know exactly where all the bodies are buried. On Saturday morning at 7 o'clock, I was at the gate of Frank Brooks' mansion in Buckhead, Atlanta's wealthiest neighborhood. My father-in-law welcomed me into his office, an impressive room overlooking the garden, with dark wood paneling and trophies from decades of empire building. Michelle, he said, pouring coffee into fine porcelain cups, Lucas told me about the situation. Frank Brooks was a 72-year-old, self-made man who had turned a small construction company he inherited from his father into a billion-dollar conglomerate. He was also someone who hated weakness. And what do you think about it? I asked bluntly. I think my son is an idiot, he replied without hesitation. And that Camila is an opportunist who doesn't know who she's messing with. Frank leaned back in his leather chair, studying my face. But you didn't come here to cry on my shoulder, did you?
No.
I came to talk about the future of Brooks Construction. Go on. If Lucas divorces me and marries Camila, she technically becomes part of the family. Do you intend to give her access to the business? Frank laughed, a dry, harsh sound. Michelle, do you really think I built this empire to hand over to a store clerk who seduced my son? So, what's the plan? The plan is simple. Lucas has proven he doesn't have the fiber to lead this company. You do. I want you to remain CEO, regardless of what happens with the marriage. And Lucas will learn that actions have consequences. Frank opened a drawer and took out some documents. These are the papers that officially transfer 45% of the company's shares to you. With my 51%, we have complete control. I looked at the documents, processing what this meant. How much does Lucas get? 4%. Enough to receive modest dividends, but zero decision-making power. And when does this happen? On Monday, before the divorce hearing. It was exactly what I needed to hear. After leaving Frank's house, I went straight to the office of Mia Richardson, one of the most aggressive lawyers in Atlanta. Mia was 45, with gray hair cut in a stylish bob and a reputation for never losing a divorce case. Michelle Brooks, she said, greeting me at her office door. I've heard a lot about your work at Brooks Construction. I hope you've heard good things. Just that you turned a family business into a modern corporation. Impressive. We sat in a conference room overlooking downtown Atlanta. So, Mia said, opening a notepad, tell me everything. I spent 2 hours detailing the situation, Lucas's affair with Camila, the pregnancy, the divorce filing. But mostly, I explained the real financial situation. Let me get this straight, Mia said, taking notes. Lucas thinks he's rich, but he actually owns next to nothing? Correct. And Camila thinks she's marrying the heir to an empire? Exactly. But you're the one who really runs the company? As of Monday, officially. Mia smiled, the smile of a predator who has just identified the perfect prey. This is going to be fun. We spent the rest of the afternoon planning our strategy. First, Mia would request a full audit of the couple's assets. They'll find that Lucas's personal net worth is practically zero, she explained. Second, we would demand alimony from both Lucas and Camila. What do you mean, from Camila? I asked. She interfered in the marriage. In Georgia, that's grounds for compensation. Third, we would claim all assets that were acquired with my income. The apartment is company property, so it doesn't count. But the car, the jewelry, the furniture, everything that was bought with his salary is yours. And finally, we would expose that Lucas had no real authority in the company. When they find out that the billionaire CEO is actually a ghost employee, the dynamic changes completely. Camila is going to freak out, I said. We hope so. People in panic make mistakes. On Sunday afternoon, I decided to pay an unexpected visit to my future ex-husband and sister-in-law. I found them in Lucas's parents' apartment, in the living room, surrounded by interior design magazines and crib catalogs. Michelle, Camila said, looking genuinely surprised. We weren't expecting you. I just came to pick up a few things. I lied, taking in the scene. They were planning their future as if they were already living in our apartment. I'm so glad you came, Camila said, all excited. We were picking out colors for the baby's room. In our apartment? In Lucas's apartment, she corrected, with that smug smile. Lucas was leafing through a catalog of expensive strollers. Look at this one, he said to Camila, pointing to a $3,000 model. It has all the features you wanted. $3,000. More than he had in his bank account. Lucas, I said casually, have you talked to your father about your responsibilities at the company after the wedding? He hesitated. Not specifically. Why? Just curious. I figured Camila would want to know how things work. Camila looked at me intently. What do you mean? Nothing much. Just that corporate structures can be complicated. Complicated how? Camila insisted. Well, for example, do you know exactly what position Lucas holds in the company? He's the executive vice president, Camila replied proudly. And do you know what an executive vice president does? Silence. Michelle, Lucas said, uncomfortable. We don't need to get into those details right now. Of course not. I agreed, smiling. I'm sure you'll find out everything in due course. Camila's expression had changed slightly. A shadow of doubt crossed her face. Why are you being so cooperative? She asked. Camila, you two are adults. You made your choices. Who am I to interfere? But I had planted the seed of doubt. On Monday morning, before the divorce meeting, Frank and I formalized the transfer of shares. At 9 a.m., I was officially the owner of 45% of Brooks Construction. At 10 a.m., I was in Mia's office, preparing the final documents. At 11 a.m., we got a call from Camila. Can I move up the meeting? She asked, her voice slightly nervous. I'm eager to get everything settled. Sure, Mia replied. How about 2 p.m.? Perfect. When Mia hung up, she looked at me with that predatory smile again. She's nervous. That's good for us. Why do you think so? Nervous people reveal more than they mean to, and they make unnecessary concessions. During lunch, Mia explained the psychological strategy to me. We'll let her present her demands first. The more arrogant she is, the more devastating the fall will be. What if Lucas tries to intervene? Lucas is a coward. He'll let Camila do the talking and then try to hide behind her when things go south. How can you be so sure? 30 years of divorce have taught me how to read people. Lucas is the type who avoids confrontation at all costs. He chose Camila precisely because she does his dirty work for him. At 2 in the afternoon, Lucas and Camila arrived at Mia's office. Camila was dressed like a Hollywood executive. Black suit, high heels, leather briefcase. Lucas looked like a child being dragged to the principal's office. Well, Mia said, opening the meeting, I understand you have a proposal to present. We do, Camila replied, taking papers out of her briefcase. And that's when the show began. Well, Camila said, opening her briefcase with theatrical solemnity, I've prepared a fair division of assets. She was beaming, dressed like a successful executive, clearly thinking she was about to formalize her great victory. She slid a sheet of paper across the table with the confidence of someone who believed she held all the cards. Michelle can have $400,000. I increased the amount because I want to be generous, and some personal furniture. Mia pretended to read the document, raising an eyebrow theatrically. Interesting proposal, Camila. What about the apartment? It's ours, of course. Lucas needs a stable home for our family. Camila held Lucas's hand possessively, as if marking her territory. It's a beautiful apartment, worth about $2 million. But Michelle can visit whenever she wants. Visit? As if I were a distant relative. What about the company? Mia continued. Michelle obviously can't continue working at the family business after the divorce. It would be awkward for everyone. Camila smiled as if she were solving a complicated problem. But she'll receive a nice severance package to start her life over. She could even open a small consulting firm. Lucas remained silent, letting Camila orchestrate the humiliation as she always did. That's very generous of you, Mia said with a smile I recognized immediately. It was the smile she wore before completely destroying an opponent. Camila, may I ask a few questions about this proposal? Of course, feel free. First, you mentioned that you get to keep the apartment. Do you know whose name it's registered under? The Brooks family, of course. Lucas explained to me that it's family property. Specifically in whose name? Lucas shifted uncomfortably, a cold sweat beginning to appear on his forehead. It's in the name of Brooks Construction, he muttered, his voice almost inaudible. Correct. And you know how the company's housing policy for employees works? Absolute silence. Mia opened an elegantly organized folder and took out an official document. Brooks Construction rents corporate real estate to eligible employees for $5,200 a month. Rents. Camila blinked, the first crack appearing in her confident facade.
Yes.
It's a benefits program for high-level executives, and only employees in leadership positions are eligible for the benefit. Camila looked at Lucas with an expression that was beginning to mix confusion with irritation. Lucas, what exactly is your position at the company? Executive Vice President, Lucas replied, but his voice sounded less and less confident. And what are your specific responsibilities in that position? Mia pressed, like a prosecutor questioning a witness. I supervise special projects. What kind of special projects? Lucas hesitated, looking at me as if expecting me to save him. Various important projects. Could you be more specific? Well, I analyze growth opportunities. Mia smiled and took another document out of her briefcase. According to official company records, Lucas Brooks has zero decision-making authority. His position is classified as an honorary position with no operational responsibilities. The color began to drain from Camila's face. What do you mean, honorary position? It means he has a title with no real responsibilities. It's a common courtesy in family businesses. But he earns an executive salary. Let's take a look at that, Mia said, pretending to consult documents she had already memorized. Lucas Brooks' net monthly salary, $4,800. Impossible. Camila exploded, jumping up from her chair. He told me he made over $15,000 a month. Lucas sank further into his chair, looking as if he wanted to disappear completely. I thought it was more. Michelle always took care of the finances. Lucas, Mia said with exaggerated patience, have you ever read your own paycheck? Michelle always deposited everything. It was at that moment that Camila turned to me, her eyes beginning to shine with a mixture of anger and panic. What the hell is going on here? Reality. I replied with the calmness of someone watching a movie they already knew the ending to. Lucas told me you were millionaires. He didn't lie completely. We are millionaires. I am a millionaire. Mia continued, now clearly enjoying the situation. Camila, Do you know exactly what Michelle's position is at Brooks Construction? She works in finance, something with numbers. Michelle is the CEO of the company, president and chief executive officer. The silence that followed was so deep that I could hear the office air conditioning. CEO. Camila's voice came out as a strangled whisper. CEO, president, and largest individual shareholder. Mia confirmed, clearly relishing every word. She controls 45% of the company's shares and has complete decision-making authority. And Lucas? Lucas owns 4% of the shares. No voting power in corporate decisions. Camila looked at Lucas as if she were seeing a complete stranger. You let me believe you own the company. I never said that exactly. You talked about our business, our investments, our success. Technically, they were ours. We were married, so. Technically? Camila shouted, her composure completely shattered. You lied to me about everything. Camila, I really thought that. Shut up, she exploded, turning to Mia. What about the car? The BMW they drive. Corporate lease in the company's name. Mia replied methodically. The apartment? Owned by Brooks Construction, rented to qualified employees. The jewelry? The expensive clothes? The trips? All purchased with Michelle's salary, who as CEO earns approximately $850,000 annually. Camila was clearly hyperventilating now. And Lucas's personal bank account. Mia consulted another document with surgical precision. Current balance, $2,347. $2,000? Camila screamed, as if she had been shot. I quit my job. I spent my savings. All because you said you were rich. I thought you were rich, Lucas muttered pathetically. You thought. It was at that moment that Mia decided to deliver the final blow. Camila, there's an additional issue we need to address. What issue? She asked, her voice now heavy with despair. Michelle is requesting alimony from both Lucas and you. From me? Why the hell from me? Willful interference in the marriage. In Georgia, that constitutes grounds for financial compensation from the interfering party. But I don't have any money. I have nothing. That will be her problem to solve. Camila turned to me, her eyes filled with desperate rage. You planned this. You set this up to humiliate me. Camila, I replied with a calmness that only increased her fury. I never spoke to you about my personal finances. You assumed everything based on what Lucas said. Lucas assured me that. Lucas doesn't even know how much he makes a month. How would he know how much I have? The truth was settling on Camila's face like a physical illness, turning her expression from anger to pure horror. So, there's no fortune to split. There's a considerable fortune, but it's not his. And now? What do I do now? Now you find out what you really achieved when you decided to destroy my marriage. Camila looked at Lucas, who looked like a pathetic version of the man she thought she had seduced. You ruined my life for $2,300? Camila, I can explain. I can get a better job. No, she shouted, her voice echoing through the room. It's over. This was all a huge lie. And then she played her final card, her last desperate attempt to salvage something from the situation. You know what, Lucas? I'm not pregnant. His jaw literally dropped. What? I made up the pregnancy to force you to ask for a divorce. I thought it would be the quickest way to make sure you got out of this marriage. Camila, why? Because I thought I was marrying a rich man. I thought I was securing my future. Her tears were now pure anger. I found out I was wasting my time with a complete loser who doesn't even know how much money he has in his bank account. She grabbed the expensive purse she had bought on credit to impress him and headed for the door. You two can stay together. You both deserve each other's mediocrity. The door slammed so hard that Mia's diplomas on the wall shook. Lucas looked at me with an expression of complete devastation. Michelle, what do I do now? How am I going to live? Where am I going to live? But at that moment, looking at the man who had destroyed our marriage for a fantasy, I knew that his problems were no longer my responsibility. The revenge had been perfect not because I had planned to destroy them, but because they had destroyed themselves with their own greed and ignorance. 3 months after the meeting, I received an unexpected call. It was Lucas. "Michelle, can we meet to talk? Just once." I accepted, more out of curiosity than any feelings I had left. We met at a small cafe in downtown Atlanta, far from the places we used to frequent together. Lucas looked 10 years older. He was unshaven, his clothes were wrinkled, and he had dark circles under his eyes. "How are you?" I asked, genuinely surprised by his appearance. "Living in my parents' apartment. My father fired me from the company the week after the divorce."
Why?
He said I had dishonored the family, that I wasted the chance of my life. Lucas stirred his coffee nervously. "I'm working at a hardware store. Minimum wage." "And Camila?" She disappeared. I found out she lied about almost everything. It wasn't just the pregnancy. The job she said she had? She'd been fired months ago. Her debts were much worse than she'd told me.
He sighed deeply.
"Michelle, I was a complete idiot. I threw away the best marriage of my life for fantasy. Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want to ask for your forgiveness. And because, well, you won. Completely." I looked at the man who had been my husband, trying to feel some satisfaction at his downfall. But surprisingly, I felt nothing but a strange peace. "Lucas, I didn't win anything. I just protected what I built. You could have told me about how things really worked. You lived with me for 6 years. You saw me work 12 hours a day, make decisions, solve problems. Did you think it was all an act?" He lowered his head. I wanted to believe I was special, that I deserved it all without trying. And now I know I'm not special. I'm just an ordinary guy who was lucky enough to marry an extraordinary woman and threw it all away. We finished our coffee in silence. When we got up to leave, Lucas looked at me one last time. "You're going to be happy, Michelle. You deserve it." It was the only sincere thing he had said in years. Today, 2 years later, my life has completely changed. Brooks Construction has grown 40% since I officially took over as CEO. We bought 3 smaller companies and expanded into North Carolina. My apartment is truly mine now. I bought an incredible penthouse with a view of all of Atlanta. As for love, I'm not ready yet, but I've learned something valuable. I don't need a man to complete me. I'm already complete. Frank Brooks, my former father-in-law, is still my mentor. He says I'm going to be one of the most influential CEOs in the South. "You turned our family business into a modern corporation," he said last week. "My son lost a fortune. You gained an empire." The lesson I learned isn't about revenge. It's about knowing your own worth. Camila and Lucas saw me as an obstacle to the life they wanted. They didn't realize that I was the life they wanted. They coveted an illusion and lost reality. I defended reality and built something even greater. Sometimes, people show their true colors under pressure. Camila showed she was an unscrupulous opportunist. Lucas showed he was a coward with no ambition. And me? I showed I was much stronger than anyone imagined, including myself. Their betrayal didn't break me. It freed me. It forced me to stop carrying people who never valued me. It taught me that my loyalty was a gift, not an obligation. Today, I run a billion-dollar company, live in my dream house, and have a team of 500 people who respect my leadership. Camila is still looking for the next rich man to support her dreams. Lucas still lives with his parents, earning minimum wage. And me? Well, I'm exactly where I've always belonged, in charge of my own life.
Oh my.
What an incredible story, Michelle. It's amazing how you turned a devastating betrayal into an opportunity for growth. Thank you for sharing this journey with us. And you, listener, did you enjoy following this epic turnaround? Leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and tell us in the comments, have you ever been in a situation where disappointment turned into liberation? See you next time on the Story Threads podcast.